In Oakhaven County, the emergency dispatch center runs on two things: caffeine and silence. We're trained to handle anything: car wrecks, domestic disputes, heart attacks. But there's a second manual, the one they don't give rookies, the one with 3 rules. Don't validate voices from deadlines. Don't answer when the static speaks your name. And if 3 people call in saying the stars are wrong, you shut it down. You log it, and you pray. My name is Ben Carter. I work the night shift. And last week, I broke every rule. The graveyard shift at Oakhaven County Emergency Dispatch doesn't so much begin as it oozes into existence. Outside, the relentless Pacific Northwest rain, a signature of late autumn, drums against the reinforced windows, a constant percussion against the low hum of servers and the stale scent of burnt coffee that permeates the operations floor. Inside, under the muted blue-toned glow of a dozen monitors, the world shrinks to this hermetically sealed room, a bubble of weary vigilance against the vast, forested darkness that blankets most of the county beyond the city limits. My name is Ben Carter. I work the lonely hours from midnight till dawn, translating panic and pain into coordinates and codes. Officially, I prefer nights. Less chaos, cleaner calls. Unofficially, sleep became a foreign country after the Tanner Creek incident, after the frantic calls cut short by rising water, after my inability to pinpoint the location before the line went dead forever. Now, the structured procedure of dispatch, the rigid logic of the CAD system, the constant stream of external crisis, they're a bulwark against the silence where my own failures echo loudest. Listening to others' emergencies feels like a strange, inadequate penance. The dispatch center is a study in contrasts. Cutting-edge mapping software displayed on flickering, aging monitors, ergonomic chairs shedding faux leather onto institutional carpet, the clean digital chime of incoming 911 lines against the ever-present analog hiss of open radio channels, a static sea lapping at the shores of coherence. We sit like lighthouse keepers, tending our electronic beacons, peering into the digital fog that covers Oakhaven's sprawling mix of struggling timber towns, isolated mountain cabins, and the rain-slicked streets of the county seat itself. Supervisor Davis, my watch commander, embodies the place. He looks perpetually tired, his face etched with the topography of too many long nights listening to the worst moments of people's lives. He moves with a slow, deliberate economy, his voice a low rasp honed by decades speaking into a headset. During my orientation, after covering the standard protocols, the phonetic alphabet, the codes, the jurisdictional boundaries, he'd leaned back, the fluorescent light glinting off his spectacles, and lowered his voice. "Now, Carter," he'd said, his gaze steady, unnervingly calm. "The handbook covers 99%. Then there's the other 1%. Things specific to Oakhaven, specific to the night shift." He'd slid a worn, laminated index card across the console. "Not standard issue. Typed like the rules for that damn train station job I almost took. Focus, Ben. Oakhaven County Dispatch. Night Watch Anomaly Protocol. These aren't suggestions," Davis had said, his voice flat, leaving no room for doubt. "These are procedures. Non-negotiable. I read them." The clinical language jarring against the implications. Visual Anomaly Code 7. Caller reporting entities exhibiting non-Euclidean geometry, wrong angles or excessive, unnatural ocular features, too many eyes. Loc incident as Code 7. Express no validation. Disconnect immediately. No unit dispatch. My illogical brain scrambled for explanations. Drugs, psychosis, prank calls. But Davis' grim certainty felt colder than any hallucination. Disconnect immediately. Don't engage. Don't validate. Decommissioned circuit protocol. Call received from number within decommissioned circuits directory. Operator will not speak first. Await caller identification request. If caller requests individual deceased prior to circuit decommission date, respond line error. Unable to connect and terminate call. No trace follow-up. Calls from dead lines asking for dead people? The absurdity was profound, yet the detailed procedure. Don't speak first felt chillingly specific. Implied listening, waiting for it to identify itself. Echo protocol. Receipt of multiple 3 tennis simultaneous, near simultaneous calls from disparate locations reporting identical non-verifiable. Impossible events with statistically improbable identical phrasing. Initiate echo protocol. Silent supervisor alert only. Log subsequent calls on identical topic as echo ref NTF. No priority hallucination until 600 hours. Mass hysteria? Or something else? Something broadcasting itself onto the lines, onto people's perceptions? And the protocol wasn't to investigate, but to ignore it systemically after alerting Davis. Filter the noise. These calls I'd started. Looking up at Davis, they're frequent. Frequent enough to have protocols, he'd replied, taking the card back. Don't try to understand them, Carter. Just follow the procedure. Your job is to route help for this world. Your job is to route help for this world, not invite things in from elsewhere, especially not after midnight. Now, settled into my console for the night, those rules hung beneath the surface of my awareness. The shift starts slowly. A minor fender bender downtown, a noise complaint near the old paper mill. I handle them. Voice calm, fingers flying over the keyboard, mapping locations, dispatching units. The familiar rhythm is almost soothing. Then, a line lights up. An unlisted number, no location data populating automatically. I put on my headset. Oakhaven County 900. What is your emergency? Silence. Just open line static. A heavy, wet-sounding static, almost like breathing. Rule of 2. Operator will not speak first. My heart jumps. Is this a decommissioned line? The system doesn't flag it, but hello? I prompt cautiously, violating the potential rule, needing some input. The static shifts, deepens. A faint sound coalesces within it. Not words, but a series of rhythmic clicks, like teeth chattering, or perhaps stones being tapped together. Then, abruptly, the line goes dead. I stare at the console, the cold, disconnected icon flashing. Just a bad connection. Or something else. I log it. Unknown number. Static unusual noise. Disconnected. No code applies. But the unease lingers. Outside, the rain continues its ceaseless drumming. The monitors glow, showing the dark map of the county. A scattering of active unit icons moving like lonely fireflies. My headset hisses softly, waiting, listening for the next call, for the mundane emergencies, and perhaps for the other 1%. The static feels deeper tonight, a vast listening sea, and I feel like I'm drowning in it. The dead air from the disconnected call seemed to linger in my headset, heavier than normal static. I logged it. Unknown number, unusual auditory signal, clicking, line terminated, feeling foolish yet undeniably unnerved. Was it just a glitch, or the first tremor before the earthquake? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the steady rhythm of the keyboard, the glow of the county map, the mundane flow of a typical Oakhaven night, a domestic disturbance simmering down, a prowler report that turned out to be a raccoon, a welfare check on an elderly resident snowed in up near Cougar Mountain. Normalcy, fragile as it felt. The rain outside had eased to a persistent drizzle, misting the windows, blurring the sparse lights of the town below. Inside, the air hummed with a low thrum of servers and the quiet clicks of my colleagues' keyboards. Miller, from day shift holding over late, and old Henderson reading a dog-eared paperback between calls. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It felt expectant. Then, line 3 flared bright red. 911. I clicked answer. Oakhaven 911. What is your emergency? The voice on the other end was thin, breathless, laced with pure, undiluted terror. Female. Maybe early 20s. Outside, she gasped, the word dissolving into frantic hyperventilation. Okay, ma'am, stay calm. I began, fingers already flying across the keyboard, trying to pull an address from the incoming signal. Weak signal somewhere out past the old logging roads west of town. What's outside? Can you describe it? I don't know. She sobbed. It's wrong. The angles. It's like it's folded wrong. Sharp edges where they shouldn't be. And the eyes. Her voice broke, pitching higher into near hysteria. Oh God, the eyes. There are too many. Shining, reflecting the porch light. They keep opening. Ice clamped around my heart. Rule 1. Caller reporting entities exhibiting non-Euclidean geometry, wrong angles, or excessive unnatural ocular features. Too many eyes. Look incident as code 7. Express no validation. Disconnect immediately. No unit dispatch. But the terror in her voice was utterly real. Every instinct screamed to keep her on the line. Get a unit rolling. Help her. My past failure. The Tanner Creek call. The voice lost to rising water because I couldn't pinpoint them fast enough. Surged up, choking me with guilt. I couldn't fail again. Ma'am, where are you? I need your address, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, authoritative, fighting the protocol. It sees me, she shrieked. It's coming closer, the window. There was a sound like tapping, rapid and sharp. Then a horrific wet crunch, followed by a piercing scream that cut off abruptly into dead air. Ma'am! Ma'am! What's your location? I yelled into the dead line. Nothing, just the faint hiss of static. The call icon on my screen flashed, line terminated. My hands were shaking. Bile rose in my throat. Had I just heard someone die because I hesitated? Because I didn't follow the damn rule fast enough? Or would following it have mattered? With trembling fingers, I opened the incident log. Typed, code 7, location, signal lost, sector W4, logging roads, notes, caller reporting visual anomaly, wrong angles, too many eyes, audible distress, possible sounds of disturbance. Line terminated abruptly. I hit enter, the cursor blinking accusingly on the screen. No unit dispatched. Protocol followed. Too late. I felt sick. Henderson glanced over, raised an eyebrow. I just shook my head, unable to speak. He grunted, turned back to his book. He knew, or suspected. Minutes later, the same line. Unlisted, sector W4, lit up again. My heart leaped. I answered instantly. 911. What's... Silence. Not static this time. Just dead. Empty air. Then, a single, soft click. Line terminated. I logged it. Follow-up call, same line disconnected? No code applied, but the feeling of being watched. Not by eyes, but through the technology. Through the very lines connecting this dark county, was overwhelming. I spent the rest of the shift jumping at shadows. The woman's final scream echoing in the static between calls. When I checked the code 7 log before signing out, I saw dozens of entries stretching back years, all from different locations, all disconnected abruptly, all marked NFA. No further action. A hidden history of ignored terrors. The code 7 call haunted me. Sleep offered fragmented nightmares filled with impossible angles and myriad shining eyes. Guilt gnawed, not just the old guilt about Tanner Creek, but new guilt for the woman on the logging road. Had I condemned her by following the rule, or by hesitating? The ambiguity was its own torture. I threw myself into the job, the relentless flow of calls a welcome distraction. But my senses were permanently heightened, straining to catch the anomalies beneath the surface. I started digging into the decommissioned circuits directory during quiet periods. It was a bizarre digital graveyard. Hundreds of old phone numbers, mostly from remote cabins, abandoned farms, or areas flooded by the dam project decades ago. Each was linked to a date of decommissioning, often coinciding with a death certificate, an accident report, or simply a property vacated notice in the county records. It felt like cataloging ghosts. Why maintain this directory? Why have a protocol for calls from lines that shouldn't exist? The rain returned midweek, a cold, persistent drizzle that turned the mountain roads slick and treacherous. The night shift was quiet, punctuated by minor calls. Downed power lines, fender benders. The static on the line seemed heavier tonight, charged by the storm front moving in. Around 3:45, a line lit up, displaying a number sequence I didn't recognize, but the system flagged it instantly. Decommissioned. LC 113, Tanner Creek sector. My blood ran cold. Tanner Creek, the place from my nightmares, the source of my transfer, my exile to this dispatch center, and a call from a dead line in that very sector. Rule 2, call received from number within decommissioned circuits directory. Operator will not speak first. I'll wait. Caller identification request. My hand hovered over the answer button. Every nerve screamed to ignore it, to let it ring unanswered into the void. But Rule 2 didn't say don't answer. It said don't speak first. With a trembling finger, I clicked answer. Silence filled my headset. Not dead air, but the faint open line hiss characteristic of old copper wires, layered with the soft whisper of rain. I waited, holding my breath, straining to hear anything over the frantic pounding of my own heart. 1 second. 2, 5, 10. Then, a voice. Faint, weak, cracked with static, but instantly, shatteringly familiar. Ben? It was Mom. Benny, is that you, honey? Shock, cold and absolute, paralyzed me. It couldn't be. She was gone. Months gone. Yet the voice, it was hers. Her exact cadence. Her specific way of saying my childhood nickname. Grief, sudden and overwhelming, crashed over me, blurring my vision with tears. Benny, I think I'm lost. The voice trembled, laced with static and that specific note of confusion she'd had near the end. It's so dark here. Like down by the creek. Tanner Creek. Remember, Tanner Creek. The call I failed. The reason I was here. How could it know? Unless it was her. A ghost trapped somehow. Reaching out, the desperate hope was agonizing, warring violently with the cold dread of Rule 2. If they asked for someone deceased prior to circuit decommission date, respond, line error. This wasn't that, but the other part. If someone calls your name through static and uses your mother's voice, don't respond. Benny, please, the voice pleaded. Closer now, clearer through the static, filled with heart-wrenching fear. I can hear the water rising again. Just like that night. You tried to help them, baby. You tried. It wasn't your fault. Forgiveness, offered by her ghost through a dead phone line, or a crueler manipulation. Just talk to me, Benny. Please, don't leave me alone here. My hand shot towards the transmit button on my console, desperate to answer, to apologize, to hear her voice clearly just one more time. My thumb hovered over the button. Don't respond. The rule screamed silently. It knows what hurts you. This was the ultimate test, using my deepest wound, my most profound regret, as bait. Tears streamed down my face. I bit down hard on my knuckle, tasting blood, the physical pain a desperate anchor against the emotional storm. I couldn't answer. Whether it was her ghost or some monstrous mimic, answering felt like opening a door I could never close. It felt like failing again, but in a deeper, more terrifying way. With a shaking hand that felt disconnected from my body, I forced my finger to the disconnect button on the screen. I stared at it, my thumb hovering. The pleading voice continued for one more agonizing second. "Benny, don't." Click. The line went dead. Silence flooded my headset, vast and empty. I ripped the headset off, burying my face in my hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The grief, the guilt, the terror, it poured out of me. I hadn't answered. I'd followed the rule. I had hung up on my mother's voice, real or not. The sense of violation was absolute. I felt like I had betrayed her all over again. After a long time, I forced myself to sit up, wiping my eyes, feeling hollowed out. I logged the call. Decommissioned LC 113. Incoming audio. Unverifiable. Protocol 2 enacted. Line terminated. Cold, bureaucratic language for an act that felt like severing my own soul. As I stared numbly at the screen, a flicker of movement caught my eye on a dark monitor showing the building's exterior security feed. Near the back entrance, half hidden by the rain and shadows, stood a small figure, like a child. Pale hands pressed against the glass door, leaving fleeting prints that vanished in the rain. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. My blood ran cold again. The handprint from the cop story. No, just my exhausted mind playing tricks. But the image lingered, unsettling. I needed to understand. I turned back to the console, hands still trembling, and began searching the system archives for every mention of decommissioned circuit protocol, Tenor Creek anomalies, voice mimicry. I needed to know what I was dealing with, what I had just refused to answer. I needed to know what happened next. The rule to encounter left me raw, exposed. Sleep became impossible, haunted by static, and a voice that was both beloved and terrifying. During shifts, I existed on a knife's edge of caffeine and paranoia. Every call from an unknown number made my heart seize. Every burst of static felt like a prelude. I plunged into the archives, neglecting routine duties, obsessed with finding answers Davis wouldn't give. The decommissioned circuit logs were a litany of sorrow and strangeness. Numbers linked to fatal accidents, remote suicides, houses consumed by forest fires decades ago. Many clustered around Tanner Creek, Black Creek Hollow, Hemlock Ridge, places the county map marked with vast tracts of state forest or unincorporated territory. Places where help was slow to arrive, if it ever did. I found older dispatcher notes mentioning mimic calls or temporal static, often dismissed as stress or faulty equipment. But the pattern was there. Code 7 reports were rarer but more disturbing. Descriptions of things seen in fog or deep woods, impossible shapes, too many limbs, eyes that reflected wrong, always ending with disconnection or static, always logged NFA, always originating from the same remote sectors. An echo protocol. It had been initiated 5 times in the last 20 years, according to the fragmented digital records. Each instance coincided with strange phenomena reported countywide. Localized power grid failures, mass reports of strange lights, brief periods of disorientation or memory lapses reported by residents near the trigger zones. The system flagged the identical calls, alerted the supervisor silently, and then automatically tagged subsequent reports as NTSE, no priority hallucination, effectively blinding the dispatch center to the ongoing event until sunrise. It wasn't just filtering noise. It was enforcing ignorance during a potential crisis. Why? Keeps the panic down, Davis grunted when I cautiously asked him about Echo Protocol, citing Historical curiosity keeps the lines clear for real emergencies. You get 100 calls saying the moon turned inside out. You can't dispatch fire trucks to chase shadows. Log it. Tag it. Wait for morning. Procedure. His explanation felt too simple. Too neat. The storm front that had brought the rain finally moved off, leaving behind unnaturally clear skies and a brittle cold. It was just before dawn, the dead hour, when even the city felt asleep. The dispatch center was quiet. Just me and Henderson, who was mostly dozing over a crossword puzzle. Then it started. Line 1 lit up. Then line 4, line 2, line 6, simultaneously. I answered line 1, Oakhaven 911. It's happening again. A calm, eerily monotone male voice stated, "Look up. The stars are wrong." Click. Line dead? Before I could react, line 4 chimed in my headset as I answered it. It's happening again. A completely different voice. Female. Slightly breathless. "Look up. The stars are wrong." Click. Line 2. Elderly man, voice trembling. "Happening again. Look up. Stars wrong." Click. Line 6 sounded like a teenager, giggling nervously. "Look up. Stars are totally wrong." Click. 4 calls. Different locations scattered across the county map. Downtown. Suburbs. A remote farm. I called out, keeping my voice level despite the tremor. "We have an echo event." Henderson jerked awake, instantly alert. Davis, who'd been silently monitoring from the supervisor's console, simply nodded, his face grim. "Acknowledge. Initiate echo protocol. Lo primaris, tac subsequent NAS until 600. My fingers flew across the keyboard, activating the silent alert, tagging the first 4 calls. Immediately, more lines lit up. Line 3. I answered line 1 again. Line 5. Lines. Oakhaven 911. "Look up. The stars are wrong." Same monotone male voice. Click. I logged it. Echo ref NMAF. Line 5. Panic sobbing. "Please, you have to help. They're not stars. They're falling. I can see them falling." The emotion was real, visceral, but the core message, identical. My gut clenched with guilt, but I typed. Echo ref NEH. Disconnected. Line 3. They have too many eyes. The breathless female voice gasped, deviating slightly but clearly linked. The wrong stars have eyes. Click. Echo ref NEH. Disconnected. The calls kept coming. A relentless wave, maybe 20 or 30 in as many minutes. Some calm, some panicked, some reporting variations. Colors shifting, constellations rearranging, geometric patterns appearing between the stars, but always the core. The stars are wrong. And always. The identical phrasing of the initial trigger calls echoing through. Henderson handled some, his voice aboard monotone, logging them NTHG. Davis oversaw silently, occasionally directing resources to actual emergencies that filtered through the noise. A house fire, a medical assist, proving the system could still function, albeit under immense strain. Logging call after call as no priority hallucination felt deeply wrong. These people sounded terrified, witnessing something impossible. My job was to help, yet the protocol demanded I dismiss them, silence them, enforce the official reality. I felt like a censor, erasing inconvenient truths. Why? What were we hiding from? What were we not dispatching units into? Around 5:45, the flood slowed to a trickle. By 600, as the first hint of gray light touched the eastern horizon, the calls stopped completely. Silence returned to the lines, leaving only the normal hiss of static. Davis sighed heavily. Event concluded. Secure echo log. He looked older. Grier. What was that, Supervisor? I asked, my voice raspy. Don't know, Davis admitted, rubbing his temples. Atmospheric disturbance. Mass hallucination. System glitch bleeding across lines. Take your pick. He met my eyes. Official report will say. Unusual volume of calls related to meteorological phenomena. Resolved. Procedure, Carter? He knew it was more. We both did, but the procedure held. The record remained clean. Just as I was about to log off, my personal cell phone, tucked away in my bag, buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. My heart leaped into my throat. The message was simple. Did you look up? The text message burned in my pocket, a cold digital ember. Did you look up? The question echoed the uncanny chorus of the Echo Protocol, twisting the shared, impossible observation into something personal, intimate. It knew my number. It knew I'd been working during the event. The fragile barrier between the impossible calls and my own life felt like it was dissolving. Returning for my next shift felt like walking towards an execution. The air in the Oakhaven County Dispatch Center was thick with unspoken tension. The Echo Protocol event was officially logged as mass system anomaly, triggered by atmospheric electrical disturbance. A bland fiction everyone implicitly understood was bullshit. Henderson looked even more frayed than usual. Davis was a granite statue behind his supervisor console, eyes scanning the boards with grim intensity. No one mentioned the stars. No one mentioned the calls. Rule Delta perhaps extended beyond just Blackgate-specific horrors. The first few hours were deceptively quiet. Mundane calls, a bar fight, a worried neighbor, a minor traffic collision, came and went, processed with a numb efficiency born of adrenaline hangovers and creeping dread. I focused on the procedures, the familiar litany of codes and questions, trying to ground myself in the routine. But my ears strained against the constant hiss in my headset, listening for whispers beneath the static, for melodies that shouldn't exist, for voices from dead lines. Every incoming call made my heart leap. Around 2:30 it happened. Line 5 lit up. Call ID. Restricted. Location data. Null. Standard procedure was to treat restricted calls with caution, but answer normally. My hand hesitated over the console. Then, the system pinged. A flag, generated automatically based on cross-referenced historical data I didn't even know existed. LC-113 correlation detected. Decommissioned circuit LC-113. Tanner Creek, Mom. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't just a restricted number. The system knew it was linked to that impossible call, the one that had used her voice. Was this it? Trying again? Rule 2. Don't speak first. Heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I answered the line, opening the channel. Silence. Only the faint, wet hiss of an open, ancient copper line. The sound of immense distance and neglect. I waited, breath held, then a voice, choked with static and panic, ripped through the silence. Not Mom's voice this time. Younger, terrified. A voice I hadn't heard in 3 long years. Except in my nightmares. 911, please. Anyone. Car went off the road. Tanner Creek. The water, rising so fast. Trapped. Doors jammed. It was him. David Rennick, the teenager whose frantic calls I'd taken that night 3 years ago. The one I couldn't locate in time as the creek flash flooded. The failure that broke me, that sent me running here. His voice identical, filled with the same rising terror I remembered with sickening clarity. Please, is anyone there? I can't get out. This wasn't mimicry of grief. This was the raw event itself, impossibly replaying or recurring down a dead line. Rule 2 technically demanded silence until they asked for someone specific who died before decommission. But this felt different. This was my ghost, my failure, served up cold, Was this the consequence of not answering Mom? Was it offering a chance to redo it? To save him this time? Or was it the ultimate personalized torture? Don't respond. The rules screamed, but David's terrified voice. Ben? Dispatcher Carter. Are you there? You were on the line last time. Please help me. He knew my name. He remembered me. Screw the rules. Screw procedure. Screw the consequences. This was my fault. I had to answer. My thumb slammed down on the transmit button. David? David, it's Ben Carter. Talk to me. Where exactly are you? Describe what you see. The panicked voice cut off instantly. The line didn't disconnect. It filled with a sound that wasn't static. It was a low, guttural chuckle. Distorted, ancient, seeming to bubble up from unimaginable depths. The sound scraped against my eardrums, cold and sharp. Clara, the voice rasped. No longer David's, no longer human. It was layered, metallic, like locusts swarming over rusted iron. So eager to fix the past. So easy to lure. You responded. You engaged. You opened the door. The lights in the dispatch center flickered violently. My console screen dissolved into a screaming chaos of static and corrupted code. Alarms blared briefly, then died. Henderson yelped as his monitor went black. You listen so well, little dispatcher. The voice continued directly in my headset now. Intimate, invasive. You filter the noise, route the calls. But what happens when the noise routes you? Images flooded my mind, transmitted through the headset like an electric current. The terrified face of the wrong angle's caller, as impossible geometry unfolded outside her window. The cold emptiness behind Mom's voice. The identical hollow voices reporting the wrong stars during the echo. And David Rennick's final moments, the rising water, the crushing darkness, shown not as memory, but as a current event, a loop playing out somewhere connected to this line. I felt the cold water, the pressure, the hopeless terror. The entity wasn't just mimicking. It was experiencing, collecting these moments, these fears. And it was using the lines, using me, as its conduit. We hear all the calls. The voice hissed, amusement mixing with infinite hunger. All the fear, all the pain. It sings to us. You tried to filter us. Now you will amplify us. The static roared, becoming physical pain, drilling into my skull. I clawed at the headset, trying to rip it off, but my hands wouldn't obey. The entity was in the system, in the connection, flowing through the wires into my brain. No, I wouldn't be its amplifier. My past mistake wouldn't define my end. My training, the dispatcher's instinct for control amidst chaos, kicked in through the pain and terror. The console was glitching, but maybe I could fight it with its own tools. My fingers flew across the keyboard, navigating unresponsive menus through sheer muscle memory. Isolate line 5. Command failed. Initiate emergency system purge. Access denied. Manual audio override. Channel 5. Maximum feedback loop. The command hung for a second. The entity's laughter intensified in my ears, anticipating my failure. Then, the system accepted it. A deafening, high-pitched squeal erupted in my headset, simultaneously blasting back down line 5. It wasn't just feedback. It was every alarm tone, every emergency broadcast signal, every scrap of chaotic noise the system could generate, amplified and focused into a weaponized shriek of pure sonic chaos. The entity screamed, a sound of shattering glass, tearing metal, and pure, unadulterated agony that wasn't just in my headset, but seemed to echo through the room itself. The lights exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging the dispatch center into absolute darkness. My console went dead. The headset fell silent. The connection was broken. I ripped the dead headset off, throwing it across the room, gasping, trembling. blood trickling from my nose. The darkness was absolute, filled only with the sound of my own ragged breathing and the distant, panicked shouts of Henderson. I had fought back. I had cut the line. But the silence that remained felt different now. Not empty, not waiting. It felt damaged. And I knew, with chilling certainty, that I had just declared war on whatever lived in the static sea of Oakhaven County. And it knew, now, exactly who I was. The world came back, not all at once, but in jagged fragments. The sudden, profound silence after the feedback screech was replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. The smell of ozone and burnt plastic sharp in my nostrils, and the frantic shouting of Henderson somewhere in the oppressive darkness. Emergency lights flickered on overhead, casting long, eerie shadows across the dispatch floor, illuminating overturned chairs and consoles, displaying only error messages or dead screens. My nose was bleeding freely, dripping warm drops onto my uniform. My head felt like it had been split open and scraped clean. Then Davis was there, cutting through the chaos, his flashlight beam steady, his face grim but unsurprised. "Carter, report!" he barked, helping me up from where I'd slumped against the console. Henderson was babbling about a power surge, a lightning strike. Davis ignored him. "Line 5, I croaked, wiping blood from my lip. "Decommissioned call." It talked back, "Canoe me." Attacked through the headset. Davis's eyes narrowed. He shone his light briefly on my dead console, then towards the main server racks which hummed erratically under backup power. "You engaged?" Responded. "He used the Tanner Creek call," I said, the name tasting like bile. "I dispatched. Then it changed. Attacked. And you?" Davis pressed, his gaze sharp. "What did you do?" "Fought back," I rasped. "Use the audio controls. Feedback loop overload." Davis was silent for a long moment, studying my face in the dim emergency light. The high-pitched ringing in my ears slowly subsided, replaced by the familiar hiss of static, but it sounded different now. Deeper, more complex, like listening to the ocean and suddenly being able to distinguish the individual cries of drowning men beneath the waves. "All right, Henderson," Davis finally said, turning away from me. "Report this as a level 3 power surge and system failure. Get maintenance down here. Carter with me. Now." He led me wordlessly to his small, quiet office, away from the main floor. He poured me a glass of water from a pitcher on his desk. The silence broken only by the clink of glass and my own shaky breathing. "You broke Rule 2, Carter," he said quietly, sitting down opposite me. "It used him," I whispered. "The kid from Tanner Creek. Then it attacked." "They do that," Davis said, nodding slowly. "They mimic. They learn. They use what hurts. Grief, guilt, fear. Strongest signals on the line. Strongest bait." He sighed, running a hand over his weary face. "The rules aren't just about procedure, kid. They're dampers. Filters. They keep us from amplifying the signal, from giving them a clear channel. They keep us from becoming the target." "Zoe." "You did what you did," Davis interrupted. "But you didn't just feed it. You heard it. That sonic blast you pulled. Never seen that work before. Usually fries the console, maybe gives the operator a killer migraine. But you pushed something back. Something it didn't like." He leaned forward, which means two things. One, it knows you now, not just as a random dispatcher, but as you. It's got your frequency, so to speak. You're tuned in. Permanently. The blood ran cold in my veins despite the water I was sipping. "A beacon. And two," Davis continued, his voice low. "It means you can hear it better now, too. Can probably feel it probing the lines. Means you can't go back to just handling domestics and fender benders." "What are you saying, Captain?" "I'm saying your choice got made for you when you fought back," he said grimly. "You can't quit now. You'd be a walking antenna, drawing it after you. maybe leading it right out of the county lines we barely maintain. You can't stay on normal rotation. You're too sensitive, too much of a target and a risk. He paused. Your only option now is to learn the real job. Learn to be a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper. We don't just dispatch cops and ambulances, Carter, Davis said, his eyes dark. We manage this. The static, the bleed through from whatever the hell is on the other side of those dead lines and impossible signals. We log the code 7s to track patterns. We use the Echo protocol to contain reality glitches. We follow Rule 2 to starve the mimics. We keep the lines clear enough for real emergencies to get through. We are the first line, the switchboard operators from hell. He gave a humorless smile. I had my own encounter years ago. Why I ended up here. Why I ended up here. Why I stay here. He stood up, walked to the window, looking out at the dark, rain-swept parking lot. You survived direct contact. You heard it. Means you're either going to burn out fast, or you're going to learn how to stand the watch. Your choice just became which one. I looked down at my trembling hands, tuned in. A gatekeeper. It wasn't a job. It was a sentence, just like Blackgate. But maybe it was also the only way to find some kind of absolution for Tanner Creek, to stop other calls from going unanswered. The static hissed in my memory, deeper now, filled with potential. I felt the distant, hateful thrum of the entity I had anchored, like a pressure against my skull. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. A grim, cold resolve. I looked up at Davis. Okay, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Teach me how to stand the watch. Years sift the same way static does, moments blurring into a long gray hiss. I don't know how long it's been since that night. 5 years? 10? Time feels different from inside the Oakhaven County Dispatch Center, especially on the graveyard shift. I took Davis' place when he finally retired. Not to Florida, but to a quiet cabin upwind from Tanner Creek. His eyes holding a fragile piece I doubted I'd ever find. Now I wear the supervisor's headset. Now I watch the boards, listen to the static sea, and manage the filters. The job is constant vigilance. The anomalies never stop. They just change patterns. I learned the deeper protocols Davis taught me. How to read the energy signatures behind the static. How to differentiate a true code 7 wrong angle manifestation from a simple panic attack by the subtle frequencies it emits. How to route power service during an echo protocol to specific dead zones on the grid. How to use carefully timed silences or bursts of specific tones to disrupt mimic calls before they fully latch onto an operator. I am the gatekeeper. I stand the watch. A rookie, Chen, takes a call. Her voice tightens. Supervisor, caller reporting. Impossible geometry. I glance at her screen. Sector W4. Always Sector W4. Log code 7, disconnect Chen. I say calmly into my mic and take a 10-minute break. She nods, pale but relieved, disconnecting before the caller's terror fully blooms into something usable by the entity. Filter applied. A line lights up. Decommissioned circuit. LC-81, near the old Hemlock Ridge cabins. I take it myself. Silence. Then, a faint, papery whisper. Is Arthur there? Tell him Clara's waiting. I check the log. Clara died 1968. Line dead since 75. Arthur died in 82. Line error. Unable to connect, I state. Voice flat, neutral. Cutting the connection before the sorrow can gain purchase. Filter applied. An echo protocol event begins. Dozens of calls flooding in. The river's running backwards. I initiate the protocol calmly. Watch the system tag the calls NPH. Route genuine emergencies. Around the noise, I feel the pressure build in the static. The entity trying to force its impossible narrative onto reality. But the protocol holds. Filter applied. It's a lonely, draining existence. The connection forged that night never faded. I feel the entity. Always. A cold, hateful pressure at the edge of my senses. Probing the lines, testing the filters. Sometimes it whispers directly to me in the static, using Mom's voice, David Rennick's voice, even my own voice from years ago, full of fear. I don't respond. I log it, analyze the frequency, reinforce the protocols. The grief is still there. The guilt too, but they are tools now. Part of the sensory network I use to detect its intrusions. There are no promotions beyond this chair. No transfers out. Davis made that clear before he left. Those who know, who are tuned in, stay until they break, or until they find their replacement. I look at Chen, young, competent, but still unaware of the true depth of the static, and wonder. Tonight is quiet. The rain has stopped. The county map glows on my main screen, a scattering of patrol units like lazy fireflies. The only sound is the hum of the servers, the click of my keyboard, the soft hiss in my headset, but the hiss isn't empty. It never is. I lean back, take a sip of cold coffee, listening. Always listening. To the mundane emergencies, the false alarms, the lonely voices in the night. And listening too, to the spaces in between, to the static sea and the cold, ancient hunger that swims within it, waiting for the next call it tries to make, ready to disconnect, ready to filter, ready to keep the gate. The watch continues. The line holds. For now. If this story left you staring at your ceiling tonight, wondering if that faint hum in your headphones is more than just static, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you're still listening. Subscribe if you want to hear more rules that were never meant to be broken. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done when the voice on the line claimed to be your mother? Until next time, don't speak first. Don't validate. And if you hear your name whispered through the static,